San Francisco 49ers gave out yet another big-time deal, but they have not done enough to be a Super Bowl contender once again. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome into the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert, the brain, Luke Braun. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Nick Sirianni's big-time extension with the Eagles. We're going to talk about Caleb Williams desperately trying to get away from the Chicago Bears last draft. But we'll start with another big extension in San Francisco. This time, linebacker Fred Warner gets the bag. Before we dive into all of it, though, I do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen and being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. But to break down the big-time extension, we go to our guys over who we've heard a lot from this week at Locked On 49ers.
All-pro linebacker Fred Warner has agreed with the 49ers on a new 3-year contract extension worth $63 million. And he's going to get most of that, 56.7 of that, guaranteed. And now Fred Warner becomes the NFL's highest paid linebacker. So much like the deal last offseason, and we kind of talked about this yesterday, and we predicted this was kind of what it was going to look like. He goes from the number 2 highest paid linebacker to the number 1 highest paid linebacker in the NFL, much like Trent Williams did with offensive tackles in his little extension last year. Kind of a restructure with adding a year and giving him the little bump to make him the highest paid linebacker in the NFL. It's not an earth-shattering extension. We knew Fred Warner was going to be around. But really, when you start to think about the 3 deals the 49ers did and how they were able to get these deals done, Croc, with Warner, Kittle, and Purdy, these are the faces of the franchise, Croc. These deals got done. They showed leadership in getting the deals done early. The 49ers, realizing that they couldn't let this loom like they have in years past, were motivated to get these deals done. And these 3 guys are the types of guys that are going to be on the 10-year wall for the San Francisco 49ers. That's the vision. George Kittle's going to get there. Fred Warner most likely going to get there. Brock Purdy's only 3 years into this thing. We forget. He seems like a seasoned veteran, but he has to see through the rest of this contract and a couple more years to start talking about the 10-year wall for Brock Purdy. But clearly leadership with your QB1 is really an important factor here.
They could say that it's all about leadership, but I think it's about who they're leading. And I don't think that with those 3 signings, they've done enough outside of those guys to get back to being a Super Bowl contender, in my opinion. So it just wasn't enough. I get that they bring back their, 10-year wall candidates and all that, and that's great and good. But the rest of the roster is the big issue. I mean, you look on defense, there are a lot of players who have not proven anything, a lot of young players that they absolutely need to step up, a lot of rookies that have to step up right away. I mean, Michael Williams at end, defensive line, CJ West and Alfred Collins, Nick Martin at linebacker. Like, these dudes need to be ready to play right away, and I think that's asking a lot.
When you're a team that is in the conference championship at least every year, like the 49ers were 4 to 5 years, right? And then you don't make the playoffs. I think it does pose a question of like, okay, who's important here? Who needs to, because changes needed to be made for that 49 after that 49er season. I think that pressure is felt. And then you go, okay, who is the core? And they made that decision. It's Purdy, it's Fred Warner.
And 2 of those players are non-premium positions, too. I just want to say, like, out of their big 3, it's tight end and linebacker and quarterback. I don't know about that.
There you go. So, okay, they had their answer to that question for whatever you think of that answer to that question. They've done that. But that means that, yeah, everything else on the roster is going to sort of change out. And hopefully they can ship of Theseus it and not have to, get rid of everything and then, like, build it super, super slowly, right? But like you said, yeah, there are a lot of rookies or second-year players that are going to be asked to do a lot in this team to be the same guys that they were, from Ricky Pearsall, Renardo Green, and then rookies like Nick Martin might have to play a lot in, base 3 linebacker sets. I'm really hoping that they get something out of CJ West and Alfred Collins, 2 guys I liked a lot coming out. I love both.
You loved CJ West.
I loved CJ West. I liked Alfred Collins a lot. Well, I had Alfred Collins above CJ West. That was just I was just high on CJ West compared to consensus. So I love those 2 players a lot, but they're rookies. Are you going to get that? Or are we relying on Kevin Givens up the middle? And are we going to get it run down our throats when we go up against a physical team like Arizona? So there's Nick Bosa, also a core piece, I think, of the 49ers. That's just not in a contract thing right now. So I get it, right? They've decided, they're in a mini rebuild. We can call a spade, right? They're rebuild. They're in a rebuild. The 49ers of 2022 are not going to be the same as the 49ers of now and the next few years. And they've chosen the pillars around which they are doing that rebuild, but it would be pretty lofty to expect them not to take a step back in the meantime.
Exactly. And I think last year sets them up for this year where they improve. They're not going to go 6-11 this year, but I have a hard time viewing San Francisco as, they're going to be right back, in Super Bowl contention. They're going to be one of the big contenders in the NFC. I think that they can make the playoffs, but I really wouldn't make them favorites in that division like some people do. I like the Rams a lot better. I think the Cardinals could take a step forward as well. We talked about those crazy Cardinals all year last year and how this year would be a year where they step up to actually be, contending for a division title. That
Kyler Murray exceeds beyond Thanksgiving.
Yeah, he's going to have to. But overall, my point is, I think that the 49ers are at best a wild card team. I think it's going to take them another year of seeing which of these young players step up and which don't. That's why I said on yesterday's show, I think John Lynch could be on the hot seat, because if somebody has to change for the sake of change, you just paid the quarterback. I think Kyle Shanahan is a better coach than John Lynch is a GM. And although he's put together some good rosters, it's a what have you done for me lately league. So I will pose this question to you, Luke. The 49ers to win their division, or a team like the Chicago Bears to make the playoffs? What do you think's most likely out of those 2 outcomes?
Well, I might defer to our good friends at FanDuel on this one. The Chicago Bears, well, pretty much exactly the same. Chicago Bears plus 164 to make the playoffs, and the 49ers plus 165 to win the division. So it is basically about the same. We've seen bigger division win upsets in the NFL than a plus 165 team doing it. I think that does overrate the 49ers. But not so egregiously that I can take it over the Bears. It's such a tough world for the NFC North this year. They have to play the whole AFC North. They're going to beat each other up. They have to play the NFC East, Eagles, Commanders. Those games are both on the road for the Bears. It's going to be a tough one. And I think similarly, the Bears are that hopefully they've found a couple of their core pieces. They've really struggled to find those core pieces. But hopefully it's Caleb. We'll talk about him in a sec. And, Rome Odunze and pick your guy on defense, Jalen Johnson, whatever. But there's still, I think, a lot of pieces on that Bears roster that they're going to want to flip out in the next couple of years. A lot of Braxton Jones types, Gervon Dexters that they're not that happy with. And there's just too much of that for me to feel too good about it. So I'm still going with the 49ers. It would be an upset, but it wouldn't be the craziest upset in the world.
Well, speaking of the Bears, the reason I bring them up is Caleb Williams did not want to be there, and Joe Thuney does want to be there. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. Post your job. It's LinkedIn's new feature that can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, Luke, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about the San Francisco 49ers, another big-time extension, this time with Fred Warner. They've kind of set their course ahead, and we'll see how it plays out. But I wanted to compare them to a team like the Chicago Bears because I think the Bears are in a position where they need to make a push this year, but things just got a little bit more complicated over the weekend. They get a big-time story about Caleb Williams, and I'll let my guy Lauren Cox, the voice himself, tell you what it was.
You can't blame Caleb Williams for not wanting to be a Chicago Bear initially, but you also can't fault him for how he's carried himself since he's joined the Chicago Bears. I'm Lauren Cox, host of the Locked On Bears podcast, and the ESPN bombshell from Seth Wickersham's book is sending reverberations throughout Chicago about their quarterback and his loyalty to the city. And it's hard to find much fault anywhere in Caleb Williams in this process. Yes, he explored his options. Yes, he didn't want to be a Chicago Bear. He didn't have much reason to want to be a Chicago Bear. And generally, he was right about the offensive coordinator and the infrastructure in the city. But he never let that become a problem after he became a Chicago Bear. He didn't show signs of unhappiness. He leaned in fully and embraced this city and this franchise to try and make the most out of a situation that maybe he didn't love in the first place, but could have some ripple effects on the future for the Bears in the next few years of Caleb Williams' career. And we're going to break it all down for you on the Locked On Bears podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
This just turned the pressure up so much on the Ben Johnson era of the Chicago Bears. Like, it is clear.
Immediate drama.
I'm not here to just give away the Seth Wickersham book and everything. Like, that's going to be incredible. But Caleb Williams was considering legal action, consulting if there was anything he could do to circumvent the CBA. He wanted to go to the Minnesota Vikings and do anything he can to force a trade. Once realizing that they would never make a trade like that with a division rival, he accepted his position. And look, Lauren could say, hey, you can't fault him for what he's done since. And that's fair. But if I'm a Bears fan, I cannot get out of the back of my mind that this guy didn't want to be here. He almost considered legal action to not come here. He didn't want to come here so much. He might leave the first opportunity he gets or the first sign of trouble he could request a trade. And look, Caleb Williams is a full tilt diva. He is obviously somebody who would not take a rookie extension, hold out, make him franchise tag him, request a trade. He would do all of that and not feel like, you know, he's sacrificing anything. That's clearly how he's willing to operate. So if you're a Bears fan, how can you ever fully embrace this guy now? There will always be this weird level of tension between the two. And now if they don't win, they know he's going to leave. Like, it's insane, and it's classic Chicago Bears at the end of the day.
They can't ever have like a hope without there being some kind, like, there's so much hope every offseason for the Bears. And now the weather's getting warmer, which means the hope has to die. This is incredibly funny. As a Vikings fan, obviously I find this all very delicious, but I think Lauren super nailed it. I think the way that he put that, look, rookies coming out having a preference for what team they go to every single year that happens, and very rarely do they get to actually be on that team. I think most of the rookies that say that in the press are like, oh, I always wanted. I think most of them are lying. I think they all have their preference, but you don't get a choice. Sorry, Caleb, that's how it works. But yeah, it's like the moment in the end of the sitcom where, like, the rom-com where, like, oh, you were only on a date with me on a dare, yeah, but then it turned into something else. Like, that has to be the cope. Like, that has to be the vibe. And, like, you know what is going to cure all of this? Win a few games. Don't go 4-13 next time. Actually be a serious franchise. But that's what Caleb Williams seems to care about. If you kind of take the next step of like reading between the lines there with both what the quotes from both him and his dad in that article, and I'm sure in the book at large, it's that he wanted to be in a team, in an organization that was competent. And all of the problems he had with Chicago had nothing to do with money, had nothing to do with interpersonal. It was all that Chicago has been an incompetent organization. And it is extremely funny to me that this comes out. If you rewind to this time last year, you could find somebody on TV basically any day talking about how the Chicago Bears are the best ever destination for a rookie quarterback.
This is the best setup a rookie quarterback's ever had. Yes, I 100% remember it. It's crazy.
Meanwhile, the guy's trying to figure out how to not play there.
Yeah.
So the amount of charity the Bears have gotten during this feckless rebuild is astounding to me. They haven't proven a single thing. A lot of the moves that they have made to create an environment around their quarterback, from drafting Tevin Jenkins a few years ago, that was like the last Ryan Pace one, to Chase Claypool, to not getting anything out of DJ Moore. Oh my God, they have Keenan Allen. That was a total bust. All of that has been not good at all. And there is still this inner faith. Well, Caleb's just going to play around all of it. He's just going to elevate everybody. Okay, show me then. Let me see it then. It's time. It's year 2. It's year 4 of Ryan Poles. It's time for the Chicago Bears to actually be a serious franchise. If this is going to, if we're talking about them again and they're, 4-7 and we're hoping that they can rattle off 5 in a row and get hot or something like that, I'm done with the Ryan Poles regime in Chicago. I think it's over.
I think it's fair to be done already, quite frankly. I have faith in Ben Johnson, but I cannot sit here and tell you certainly I have faith in Ryan Poles. Again, the second-round trade for Chase Claypool was just so despicable that it's hard for me to have any faith after anything else happens there. I do want to ask you this, though, just from the other side of this. If, in theory, you could have traded this year's first-round pick and last year's first-round pick and move all the way up to 1 to get Caleb Williams, would you have rather have done that than make the trade to get J.J. McCarthy?
Well, Tyler,
if that option was, if it was if it was available for you to trade up to number 1 and get Caleb Williams with last year's first and this year's first that was just used, would you have done it?
I mean, I would have made the trade. I just wouldn't have taken Caleb there.
I would have taken Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
You were a Jaden Daniels guy.
Yeah, I was a Jaden Daniels. I would have super understood.
Caleb
right?
Williams, though. If the trade included you had to take Caleb Williams.
You had to take Caleb Williams.
Would you have done it?
I mean, my pre-draft take on Caleb Williams, you're probably asking the wrong guy, because I, of course, would not have done that. I wasn't as high on him as everybody else.
Then you're the right guy.
But maybe I am the right guy to ask. But, I mean, I would have understood if the Vikings went there and did that. That's quite the premium, but, like, go get your guy, right? If you're that high on him. If the Vikings disagree with me and they thought that, Caleb Williams was that high. But what I'll give the Bears is, if that is the issue, hey, you have become an unserious destination for a quarterback. If Caleb Williams is going to be here, he says, you gotta get something better than, the bloated corpse of Keenan Allen for me to throw to. Boy, did they do that this year.
Yeah.
You bring in Joe Thuney, you extend him, you bring in Drew Dowman, a more experienced center, so that Caleb Williams doesn't have to maybe call the protections as much. Coleman Shelton was not doing that. Caleb Williams was, and he was doing a bad job of it. A lot of busted protections were on Caleb, dialing in at the line. You could see it. Shout out JT O'Sullivan. Who's Jonah Jackson is the other guy that they bring in, right? Darnell Wright coming into his own. You can feel good about 4 or 5 spots on that O-line.
Yeah.
They bring in
and they draft Ozzie Trapillo, who
could that
eventually take over for Braxton Jones. That's a possibility.
It's a possibility. I think that's a project. That'll be a while.
It's too early.
But if that's the goal, and then you bring in Ben Johnson, of course, where a lot of the bombshell is wrapped up in Eberflus and Shaden Waldron. Okay, well, we got rid of those, kid, for you. We got rid of those. Yes. We brought in Ben Johnson. We brought in a better O-line. Let's see if we can do this. So the pressure's on Caleb, too. If you're going to make a big stink out of this and say, get me the surroundings, okay, here are the surroundings. Now, throw the ball before 19 seconds.
I mean, he's got to step up himself, too. Ben Johnson can help as much as possible, but he's got to do better as well. Speaking of another situation where there seems to be a lack of love, Shamar Stewart still not signing his contract. And even though rookies who haven't signed their contract have an injury waiver where they'll still get paid and blah, 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 if they participate, Shamar Stewart just still isn't doing that anyway. Do you think my, tinfoil hat theory is that seeing the Trey Hendrickson situation and the Jamar Chase and T. Higgins situation play out made Shamar Stewart not trust the Bengals organization. Therefore, he will not play even if they have the injury waiver. He just doesn't trust that organization to do the right thing by him. Do you think I'm right about that, and that's what is making him hold out like this?
I mean, that would be fair. But the point is that the signing bonus that he was offered was less than the 17th overall pick got last year, which is just unreasonable of them to do.
Yeah.
So that, I don't think you need another reason beyond that. I think that's just the Bengals being unreasonable, and Shamar Stewart has every right to be angry. But yeah, they have not proven that they are a good faith business organization. And guess what? Agents represent more than just one guy. This ain't his first rodeo.
Yeah, I keep saying that this situation with Hendrickson and these contract things they've had over the last few years, people are watching this. Players in college who care more financially now because of NIL, a lot of these guys are a little bit more locked into the finances, paying attention to what teams treat players right and don't. I think this generation of player cares much more about that kind of stuff than before, and this impact on the Bengals locker room will hurt right now, and it hurt them last year, but it'll hurt in the future as well when guys will not be loyal to them because they know that they're not going to be loyal to them even if they deserve it. But with that in mind, someone who has been loyal is the Eagles to Nick Sirianni, and they give him a big-time extension after a Super Bowl. We're going to dive into that right now as we cap off Locked On NFL. We've talked about the San Francisco 49ers, the Chicago Bears, then we're going to get into a little bit of the Philadelphia Eagles. And look, there's a tie-in here with the Eagles situation with the rules and another rules meeting. It feels like we just had a league owners meeting to debate all these rule changes and everything, but it's back again somehow. There's another vote taking place, and the Eagles obviously are at the center of that drama as well. But more importantly, the Eagles give a big-time contract extension to Nick Sirianni after winning the Super Bowl. My guy, Legacy Louie from Locked On Eagles, broke down the news.
The Philadelphia Eagles agreed to a new multi-year contract extension today with head coach Nick Sirianni, and I think this is a no-brainer after winning Super Bowl 59. While I've had my issues with Nick, I wanted him fired after Week 4 this year against Tampa Bay. I've always wanted a play-calling head coach long-term. The fact of the matter is, he is the most underrated part of the Eagles' championship win this year, and the run they've been on since 2021. And I think a lot of Nick's strengths aren't quantifiable with numbers and data and film study like others are. So he kind of gets underrated, right? But what matters most? What's most quantifiable for a head coach? It's wins and losses. And he's up there with the likes of, Vince Lombardi and Bill Belichick from a win percentage perspective through his first 5 years. He's gotten to multiple Super Bowls. He's won one. And if he doesn't listen to his players this year and make it a run-first offense behind Saquon Barkley, they don't win a championship. So Sirianni honestly might be the biggest reason you won a title this year, and he still doesn't get enough credit, including from me.
No, he's right. He doesn't get enough credit. And to fix his own mistake of messing up with the hiring of the coordinators and immediately, totally redeem himself after that led to their Super Bowl, being able to look himself in the mirror and say, I made mistakes. I didn't hire the right people. I need to go out and get better coordinators to support me. That is a self-awareness that, in my opinion, as a Titans guy, a little tie-in here, Mike Vrabel did not do. Otherwise, he would still be the coach of the Titans. And I worry about Mike Vrabel doing that. Bringing in Mike Vrabel here, Nick Sirianni is the best CEO head coach in the NFL right now, and nobody talks about him like that. Everybody talks about Dan Campbell, Mike Vrabel, the Harbaughs, but Mike Tomlin. Nick Sirianni is a better head coach right now than all of those people. You cannot multiple Super Bowl appearances, again, correcting his mistakes, having a diva-filled team with personalities everywhere and risky character draft guys, and you just lead them with fierceness all the time. Nick Sirianni deserves way more credit. He's the best CEO-style coach in the NFL right now, and he's not talked about like that. This was a good move by the Eagles, and I have not given Sirianni the credit that he deserves, and I got to start doing that because he's earned it.
Yeah, whenever you extend a coach, it's a nice little coronation, even though it's a pretty automatic thing. I mean, especially if you just won the Super Bowl, you're not ever not getting an extension.
Yeah,
even coaches firmly on the hot seat will get that extension. You don't really want guys coaching on the last year of a deal or anything. So it's a pretty automatic thing. It doesn't move the needle a lot for me. But yeah, man, good for the Eagles. They get to kind of do another little victory lap on there. That they've had a great run. Yeah, like Louis said, I mean, since 2021, they've been in the Super Bowl twice. it looked a little touch and go in 2023 when they were kind of hapless in the playoffs and whatever. It's come back and win the Super Bowl next year and all is forgiven. So yeah, good for you. I think the CEO style head coach, Louis wanting him fired, is really funny to me. That's a wild take, dude. But hey, he knows the Eagles better than I do. But I think the CEO style head coach is absolutely a perfectly valid way to do it. If you want to be the play caller, be the play caller. If you don't want to be the play caller, be the play caller. I think there are plenty of successful examples of both styles. It just has to work for the people in that building. Do what works for the people in that building. And yeah, it clearly works for the people in that building. Ultimately, you win a lot of games. You get to say that your method is the successful one. Good for you.
Well, I think the most important thing about the CEO type coach is hiring coordinators, because you have to have talent. If you're not going to call plays, you have to have somebody creative and talented calling plays. And it's easy to, maybe not easy, but it's more likely to find that once. Can you find it multiple times? Nick Sirianni did.
Yeah.
And he really deserves credit, because that's ultimately usually the downfall of the CEO style head coach is you can't replace your talent at coordinator more. And Dan Campbell, it's going to be interesting to see.
I was going to say that's going to be the test for the Lions now.
Yes. Oh, it 100. And I would bring in Mike Vrabel again, because that was his downfall in Tennessee. Did he hire the proper coordinators? Has he evaluated himself instead of trying to be such a control freak? That remains to be seen. You're only going to strike Arthur Smith in a bottle so many times. But with that in mind, do want to kind of pivot a little bit here, because there is some Eagles adjacent news. We're voting again on the Tush Push, reseeding the playoffs based on record, where your Vikings would have had a home game rather than being on the road. There's the flag football thing. Should they play in 2028? Do you have any strong opinions on those new rules or rule discussions? And even if you don't have a strong opinion, where do you lean on those topics?
Yeah, flag football. I don't care. You can do whatever rec center sport you want to do in the offseason. That's not football. Do whatever. I don't care.
Yeah, let 'em play.
In terms of the Tush Push, I also don't care. I don't think it'll stop the Eagles if it does get banned. The Eagles are good at sneaks for reasons that have nothing to do with the rugby scrum thing or the actual push itself. If there is a determination that that's best for player safety, sure. Kind of agnostic on it, though. The Eagles will still be automatic on 4th and 1 because they're really strong, bar none.
Yeah.
As for the playoff format thing, a lot of people have asked me this because it was the Vikings that got quote unquote screwed. The Vikings are on record not wanting it. They would vote against it. And I agree with them.
Same.
The way that season ended, it's so hard for me to feel like the playoff format was the problem. They had a chance to get the 1 seed in the end of the season. They blew it. They go on the road to play a wild card game. They blew it, and it wasn't because it was a road game. It wasn't even a road game. It was a neutral site game, and they still blew it. So put that game at home, or it wouldn't have changed anything for the Vikings. The Vikings fell apart at the end of the season. They would have lost to a mouse. They would have lost in a house. It didn't matter. And it's really hard for me to look at the way that the season ended and go, yeah, that team deserves a home playoff game. No, it didn't. You got swept by your division rival. You get swept by your division rival. By the way, they've lost 5 in a row to that division rival. You never get to win the division. The benefits of winning the division. The idea of maybe reseeding it in the second round or whatever is such a tiny little tweak that it doesn't matter too much to me. That's not going to change things a whole lot. Your kind of king of Doo-Doo Mountain NFC South team every year will probably be going on the road anyways. So whatever.
And if they won in the first round and everybody thought they were a not worthy team or whatever, well, then maybe they do deserve 2 home games in the playoffs. You know what I mean?
But you need the 7 and 6 seed to win for that to happen, for them to play again at home. So okay, or you need to have a situation
well, even if you're a crappy 4 seed is what I'm thinking, and
right.
There's an upset in the wild card, the crappy 4. I continue to go on I'm just, what is it? Sarah Connor from the Terminator. I'm just totally against everything being so mathematically perfect. I don't want robot umpires.
Complicated too.
I don't want to love the chaos.
This to everybody. Well, and then they reseed at the end. So if we're the 3 seed, you can become the 4. I don't want to have to do that crap. Just keep it simple and elegant and maybe a little bit flawed. It's fine. Win your division. I don't care that I'm telling that to a 14-3 team that I cover and root for.
Yes.
Win your division, beat the Lions,
Perfect.
and then you get to be serious.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like,
no, I'm perfectly on board with that. I agree 100%. I've been fighting this battle for so long. I like the chaos element. Is it fair that a 14-3 has to go on the road and maybe play a 8-9 division champion in a bad division?
Yes.
I don't care if it's fair. That's
it
the
is.
point.
It's 100% fair. They won their
I
division.
want the
They beat all
chaos.
the Cardinals. You didn't.
Human element. Like, let's have weird stuff happen. Let's have strange things. Let's have crazy matchups. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, Daniel Jones went in there and beat the Vikings a couple of years ago, and everybody thought that the Giants were an absolute joke. So, like, to me, this playoff reseeding thing is born out of we know what's best. Like, despite letting the results play out the way they play out, we know what's best. We know that the 14-3 team deserves a home playoff game over the other team that no, you don't. We don't know. Let things play out. I root for chaos. I root for the human element. I always will. But with that in mind, the other things I agree with you. Let them play flag football. Don't care about the tush push. Leave it in. To me, it just makes it complicated because then, like, what about an offensive lineman pushing a running back on a stalled play? Or what about all these?
Actually part of
like, so many questions.
Part of the proposal, and maybe the only one I don't like, is
They had to amend it.
That you can't grab the player and then like fall backwards into the end zone. We have seen some very cool highlights of that. And also probably it's the end of like that scrum on the goal line thing. You know, you get two people to stop up to stop up on the goal line, and then all the teammates come in and like push and shove. I think that rules, and then you wouldn't have that anymore. That would be a slight bummer, but I would get over it in probably about 45 seconds.
Yeah, it's not an end all be all type thing, but I totally do agree. I love those scrums. I think those scrums where both teams are up pushing and, you know, it goes to like tug of war with human bodies. People love that. And I just want to, football is entertaining.
Rugby.
We only watch this stupid child game where everyone's overpaid and we all spend too much. The only reason we do it is to have some joy in our lives and our small time on this earth. So let's have joy. It's a fun play to watch. Keep it in. But with that being said, that is going to do it for us today. I am your host, the Madman Tyler Rowland, for my co-host, the Brain, Luke Braun. As I tell you every episode, thanks for tuning in and stay safe out there.